Hello, welcome to 15 Minutes of Consulting Best Practices. My name is Maria Isabel Rios, and as you can see, David is not here with us today, but do not fret. This is a space that it's open for conversation, for your input, and where you get to chime in with your own experience and with your own answers, as well as with your questions. I am here to answer your questions about how to grow and how to create success for your boutique consulting firms, for your independent practices, for your solo practices as well. And we're going to start by answering questions that have been submitted either in prior sessions or directly to us. So Deidre, if you can, please share questions. Thank you. Okay, so the first question is from Anne-Marie. Anne-Marie says, I received a very warm introduction to a prospective client from a current client. The new prospect agreed to a meeting and said he wants to learn about what we do and whether my firm can help him. How do I meet that expectation and also stay right side up? So thank you, Anne-Marie, and thank you for directly referring to our language of right side up, which means you make it all about them, right? The focus of your conversation is on them versus making it about you. And you are prioritizing what their needs are and what they're thinking as versus what you think it should be done or making it about your firm. So how do you make it right side up and how do you introduce your firm at the same time? Start with a right side up inquiry. And for those who are new or who aren't familiar with it, a right side up inquiry is how do we make this meeting helpful, valuable, useful for you? So even when you have an agenda, and in those instances where you will have an agenda, you can always say, look, I know we agreed on an agenda for today, but before we get started and because things change, what would make today most valuable, most helpful, more useful for you? Start there. It's a great grounding point for your conversation. It ensures you're right side up. Right after that, you can give a high level overview of your firm. And here's how you keep that right side up as well. You make it really short. And I mean really, really short, right? We all love what we do. We can get really enthusiastic about it. And it's easy for us to get so excited that we want to keep demonstrating or bringing case studies up or bringing up examples. And we run into the temptation that to keep talking about our firms and our great work and our great team and a ton of examples and what we're doing. So the trick here is check in with yourself. So talk about your introduction in a way that it's really, really short. And check in with your prospect. Is that enough? Is that what you needed? So that you can let them drive the conversation, right? Let them ask you the next question. What do they want to know more about? What piqued their curiosity? What's the next step for them? So drill down only as your prospect needs to. If you decide to bring slides, and be aware that some people sometimes are expecting slides, and in some verticals, in some industries, there's the expectations that you will have a presentation. We suggest that you bring one at most, not 3, not 5, certainly not 25 slides to introduce your firm. Bring a piece of paper, bring one, try to encapsulate what you do in a one-pager so that you, again, don't run into the temptation of spending the majority of your time together speaking or going through a document versus being more in a space of curiosity where you learn what is it that the others want to know and you can speak to that. And you also learn what is it about your work that interests others, where are they at, and why is that relevant to them? Okay, Anne-Marie, let me know if that helps. And thank you, Suzanne, for chiming in, right? It is a great question, and I'm glad we got to talk about it today. All right. If there are no questions from those of you who are live, let's go with the next one that came in. And if there are, put them in. It takes me, I think, about a minute to see them as they come in. So, Deidre, why don't we go on to the next one? Thank you. A potential client reached out to me via LinkedIn and invited me to their offices. Okay, great. After I met them in their offices, they requested a draft consulting agreement. I followed up almost immediately with the agreement. It took 2 weeks for them to confirm receipt of the agreement, and I haven't heard back from them since, despite a couple of follow-up emails from me. Should I just let this go, or is there a tactful method to move the conversation forward? And this is from Jennifer. Okay, Jennifer, sorry that you're in this little bit of an unhappy situation. So why are you in this unhappy situation? Well, you kind of jumped over a couple of steps in the process, and the steps are there for a reason, right? So oftentimes people will do exactly what your prospect did. Come over, we'll show you around. Okay, proposal time. Well, part of the reason why we suggest you go through discovery, right? Why we suggest you have a context discussion before you submit a proposal is you probably didn't get to know the situation well enough, and you didn't get to align for sure with your prospect that you had a common understanding on context, at least from what you wrote to us, right? You may have done that live. We don't know that from what you wrote to us. It doesn't seem like it. You certainly didn't agree on the next steps and on the timeline for that. So in a scenario where you're getting ready to send a proposal, we would want you to have a timeline lined up. So before you send a proposal, your prospect knows they're going to get a proposal from you by X date. They're meeting with you, and you have that meeting on your calendars. It's already set up to review the proposal, either reach an agreement and then make a plan going forward, or discuss what you're going to change in the proposal on XYZ date. At that time, that meeting is on your calendars. What happens at every step of the way, right? So that's for the next time in your case, and for all those of you listening who are not approaching your proposal process this way, now you know you should have done a context document before, agreement on that. Only then you move to proposal with a timeline from when's the proposal, when your proposal review meeting is going to happen, and what's the expectation on both sides. Now that you're here, and sometimes it happens, right? Even if you have your proposal meeting lined up, your client doesn't show up or they cancel it, all of that, right? We have what we call a ghosting sequence. And you can look it up, and I can share the link in the comments at a later time, which is basically a series of messages you send your prospect, and they build on each other over a period of 6 to 7 weeks, where you're immediately, when they first didn't answer, or as they missed a meeting, or as they missed their check-in, or as they missed their proposal review or the first deadline, you check in and you trigger the ghosting sequence. And then over the next 6 to 8 weeks, you keep through the sequence, prompting them in a way that is both right side up, to reference a term we used in the prior question, right? So it's about them. It's not confrontational, but also maintains momentum in the conversation. So you want to both leave the possibility of moving forward open, and at the same time, you don't want to antagonize the person you're trying to do business with, right? So you're in that uncomfortable spot of needing an answer, and also kind of not wanting to create more confrontation that it's necessary. In most cases, this is not about you. In this case, it seems it's a response to a premature proposal where people are just wanting to know fees, and they were probably testing you. And we don't know that, right? Because the discovery wasn't completed. We don't necessarily know if that's the case or not. So activate the context sequence, the ghosting sequence, and see where that gets you. Most folks, if you get to the end of the ghosting sequence, there's a reference to the magic email. The magic email is not our invention, but it is magic. And if you get there at the end of 8 weeks, you'll get an answer. More often than not, in 90% of cases, if you get to the magic email, you get some sort of an answer from your prospect about what happened, and more likely than not, why. So Start with it. I'll put it in the comments. You can get started at this point. And let us know. Let us know how it worked for you. All right. Deidre, why don't you share the next question that came up? Thank you. Okay, a large consulting project was up for renewal. Was put on hold due to client internal issues. Okay, that's not unusual either. How can I keep us top of mind while we're waiting for their issue to work itself out? I send relevant industry news every 10 or so days and have also shared a project dashboard that shows what has been done and what still needs to be done. Good for you, Brian. Are there any other plate warmer activities you have used to keep project interest alive? Okay, so Brian, good on you on setting up the dashboard. Believe it or not, that's a great tool that you should incorporate as part of your wrap up, particularly when you have moving pieces that keep going on. You've done that. That's tremendously value add for your clients. The articles, we don't necessarily find that give people a lot of traction or that are very useful in keeping conversations going. However, if that's something you regularly do, Brian, absolutely keep that up, right? The piece that you're missing is setting up regular touch points or setting up periodic touch points. So there's two elements to this, right? As you keep momentum while you wait for resolution. The first element is saying, look, say, and let's pick an example, right? Say they're waiting for somebody to be hired or a position to be filled, which is not an unusual situation when you have a lag, a project, and then there's a lag until the next piece can resume. So a typical one is, well, yeah, we're going to wait till this position, VP of whatever, gets hired, right? And then they're up to recruiting. Say, okay, so every 3 weeks, we find 2 weeks is too short, maybe 4 weeks is too long for you, but every 3 weeks, we're going to have a 15-minute touch point. People are usually open to that. You put it on the calendar for now, every 3 weeks. As soon as the position is hired, those calls go away. It's easier now to set up recurring calls every 3 weeks for the next, say, 3-4 months than to every 3 weeks try to set up the next one. So do two things. One, establish a cadence, agree to the 15-minute touch point call, and set it up now, right, for the foreseeable future. The other element that is tied to that is you make them short, and it's simply saying, okay, what has changed? How are we doing, right? In your calls, it would be helpful to know, okay, one milestone is this example is the position filled, yes or no? There's usually another metric, which is at what point has the gap in the position, to use this example, been too long and we need to activate plan B. So also do an exercise of thinking with your clients. At what point does a gap or is there an intermediate milestone that will make you change the approach and you may want to activate your project anyway? Because either you're going to lose part of the work you did in the initial phase, or you're going to come in and you want to push forward elements of the project that are more time sensitive, or you're not going to be able to capture whatever it is for 2025. So think of those two things. Periodic touch points as means to keep momentum. And what are the metrics? What are the things that will trigger your project so that it's clear for both you and your client, when are you getting started? And it's a question of getting it implemented, easy to manage, easy to trigger a touch point. Let us know if that helps. And with that, we come to the top of the 15 minutes. So I have two requests for you. The first one is put Monday Live in your calendars with whatever time zone it is. We start at 12:15 Eastern time and adapt it to your calendar. That way you can join us. Every Monday, we'll bring you to this space and you can participate live. You can also send us questions ahead of time, as you can see people have done, and we're delighted to answer them here as well. Subscribe also, as Idra has put the URL in here. If you are not yet receiving the articles, subscribe as well. They're filled with tactical and practical advice. The comments in the articles are great and the exchanges are great. So you can participate in the conversation. They come out every Wednesday and they're awesome. And lastly, we haven't asked you in a while, but if you're not connected with David and with myself on LinkedIn, also connect with us. We'd love to hear from you directly as well. And with that, thank you very much for joining me today. Remember that consulting, it's about them, right? It's about creating success for our clients, for our teams, for our environment, and through that, creating success for yourself. So thank you for joining us. We'll see you next Monday. Bye.